expect me to keep bailing you out.
They say blood is thicker than water.
I have the most wonderful news.
In an ideal world, that's true.
I wish.
But family ties can be severed.
Cheating on me!
You are insane!
It's all gone.
Even between a parent and child. If the desire for money is stronger than the desire for love. In an affluent suburb of Fort Worth, Texas, in the early 1990s, high school graduate Nicole Yanos has lived with her father since her parents divorced. But Nicole's never come to terms with the breakup.
She was in therapy for depression and trying to understand her father and mother's divorce.
Her father's second marriage makes matters worse.
This campus is great.
Hey, Nicole, got a sec?
She hated her father, and she really resented her stepmother.
48-year-old Altha tries to keep the peace. Her dad, Bob, wants Nicole to go to college. But she no longer wants to be Daddy's little girl.
Dad, I've told you I'm not going to college.
You should just have a look. You're a bright girl.
I don't care. You don't need to go to college to have a good life.
She wanted to control her own life, her own destiny.
The 18-year-old leaves home and discovers life is tough out in the real world.
She seemed to blame everybody else for her problems. And she even blamed her dad and her mom in the divorce.
Nicole turns her back on her loving family. In Brooklyn, New York, 1892,
and then
11-year-old Ida Place is mourning the death of her mom. Widow Martha Gerritsen has been hired to look after her.
Tear her to shreds. That's all for tonight.
It did seem that Martha was going to be a good addition to the family. She seemed to take care of the young girl very well.
Now Ida is her father's whole world.
Oh.
You two are getting on well?
She is so lovely.
William Place was a widower. He was very successful, had his own business, owned a home in Brooklyn.
Bonded with Ida and indispensable to William, Martha is sure she's found her place.
Meeting William and being taken into his family was the best thing that had ever happened to Martha.
And Martha isn't the only one considering her future.
I've been thinking, maybe we should consolidate our arrangement. What I'm trying to say is, would you like to get married?
Yes.
His desire to marry Martha was not about love, but more about having someone to take care of his young teenage daughter.
Yes?
Yes.
Splendid.
Martha has hit the jackpot. In the blink of an eye, Martha Place has turned from housekeeper to homemaker.
How many times do I have to tell you? We serve from the right.
She may have managed to marry the prince.
It's fine. You're too hard on her, Martha.
But Martha is still a frog.
I have a mind to let her go.
Maybe you should have trained her better.
I beg your pardon?
No matter what she did, no matter how her position changed, Martha was always the interloper, the outsider.
Father, Edward's invited me to see the Nutcracker this Sunday evening.
Nutcracker.
It's a Russian ballet.
Not only is Martha struggling to play the lady of the house
at Carnegie Hall,
she's now finding she has competition.
La-di-da.
You can go with Edward.
Ida was growing up. She was mouthing off to Martha, the stepmother. And deep down, I think Martha started to realize that Ida was everything she wasn't.
This little duckling is becoming a swan.
She was beautiful, well-educated. She was engaged to a boy from a wealthy family. Her future looked bright.
Nicole Yanos thinks her future's bright when she meets 18-year-old Jeremiah Wetmore. But he is not exactly the boy next door.
So Nicole, who does she pick for really her first big love? The baddest boy in town. The rough guy, the tough guy.
So, where did you two meet?
Doesn't matter.
He was scary. He was a cutter. He had carved on himself. He had emotional/mental issues. And in my opinion, that's what Nicole liked about him.
The teenagers move in together, but Nicole still expects Dad to pay the bills.
I look at Nicole and I see a spoiled little girl who would ask Daddy for what she wanted and demand it. And perhaps when she was little, Daddy gave it to her.
I need another loan.
What's it for this time?
Power bill.
Nicole believes that she can have whatever she desires.
You can't expect me to keep bailing you out.
You can afford it.
I want that. I want this. Give me that. Why? Because I deserve it. I'm owed it by society.
When Dad threatens to cut the money off, Nicole decides she needs a permanent solution.
Don't care. Just kill them both.
If her father and stepmother happened to die, that she would inherit a great deal of money.
Do it properly, else we won't get the insurance money.
Trust me, it'll be easy.
She gets the response she wants. Jeremiah says, well, of course. In fact, I'll enjoy it.
Bang.
January 29th, 1994. Bob and Altha Yanos invite Nicole and her boyfriend over for dinner. Bob is hoping for a happy family get-together.
Well, let's hope for a peaceful night.
It'll be fine.
But Nicole won't be coming for dinner.
You ready?
I reckon I should stay here.
At the last minute,
What do you mean?
Nicole pulls out.
You go, take Michael. You might need his gun.
Michael!
She sends a friend, 17-year-old Michael Heath, in her place.
Heath was the go-along buddy that just thought, you know, I'm 17 years old and I've got a .357 revolver tucked. He was just in it for the good time ride.
He's coming.
Nicole doesn't want to get her hands dirty, but she still wants to be involved.
Ring me before. I want to hear the shots.
Two of you go, I'll stay behind, but you call me when you're gonna kill them. I wanna hear it. I wanna listen to their screams. I wanna listen to them pleading, begging for their lives. What does that say about Nicole? That she doesn't wanna be there, but she wants to hear it. She wants to share in the madness. So Michael and Jeremiah, they drive up to the house, they walk up to the door, But what we know is, inside their jackets, they got weapons.
Hey, how you doing, Bob? Nick's running late, so I got a lift with Michael.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nicole said you wouldn't mind.
No, not at all. Come on in.
The parents invite him in. Come on in.
Back at her apartment, Nicole is waiting to listen to murder.
She said she expected to hear the shots.
Nicole's running late. We have one more for dinner.
But Jeremiah doesn't stick to the plan. He jumps the gun.
It kind of got to a lull, and he finally just thought, oh, hey, you know, I've got them both right here. Might as well do it.
Can I offer you a drink? Would you like it? No, please.
There's no calling Nicole, there's no nothing but gunfire and blood. That's all there is. Jeremiah shoots Robert first. Because why? He needs to take out the threat. She knows that she is next. There can be no other worse feeling than knowing you're gonna die.
This was personal, emotional. She was righting a wrong in her mind somehow that this was going to be all okay, and she was going to be rich and get a college degree and go on and do whatever she wanted.
Like Nicole, Martha Place doesn't blame herself for her unhappiness. She blames her stepdaughter, Ida.
I just don't understand why you have to spend so much time with her.
Because she's my daughter?
And I'm your wife.
Don't tell me you're jealous of your own stepdaughter.
She was convinced that it was Ida's personality, beauty, and everything that was sucking the attention away from her.
Where do you think you're going?
The seeds of hate just started to sprout deep down inside.
To the kinetoscope parlor with Edward.
Not until you finish your chores, you nut.
She took out her rage mostly on Ida.
We have maids for that. In fact, we have two.
When Martha would give her a basic order, clean your room, make your bed, or do what have you, and she would get a little bit of lip from her stepdaughter. It just further fueled the rage.
Her envy of the 17-year-old has ignited into physical violence.
She's lost her mind!
All that rage that she'd been holding, barely containing, comes out now.
William, please. This is necessary, the neighbors.
He didn't just throw her out, he had her arrested.
A few nights in a jail cell is a sobering experience.
Thank you for bringing the carriage for me, William.
Martha returns home, a reformed woman.
He invited her back into the house thinking that she'd overcome that rage.
I just want to say how sorry I am.
She promised to be good, she was contrite, and for a while, things were better.
But there's been no magical transformation. It's the same Martha inside.
It was just bubbling under the surface, and it wouldn't take too long for that shell to crack and break away.
On February 7th, 1898, Martha's facade shatters when she finds her husband's will.
If William died, his house would not go to Martha. It would go to his daughter, Ida.
Drinking again, eh, Martha?
You put the house in her name.
That was the proverbial straw that broke Martha's back.
You've been going through my papers.
I'm your wife.
And Martha felt that she had again been overlooked for Ida.
The old Martha's been biding her time. And now she makes her roaring comeback.
This anger became explosive. After William left for work, Martha went to confront Ida.
Martha produced a container of carbolic acid.
Get out! I'm not finished getting dressed yet.
You just had to have the house as well, didn't you?
She threw it in her face.
Ida was everything that Martha wasn't, or had ever been, or would ever be. So she destroyed her. The first thing to go was her beautiful face.
Not so pretty now, are you?
The two of them are grappling and fighting, and Martha was so filled with rage. Her strength had to have been immense.
First, Martha takes Ida's beauty, and then her life.
So Ida's dead on the bed. And Martha just stands there realizing that her husband's going to be home in a little while, and he's going to find the love of his life, the true love of his life, his daughter, dead at Martha's hands.
Martha knows she will soon be exposed. But it takes 2 days for the murders of Bob and Altha to be discovered when the police do a welfare check.
As I remember, the front door was completely unlocked. They had a crime scene with 2 dead bodies in a dining room, several shell casings, not much else.
When Nicole is notified, her reaction is strange.
She didn't seem as upset as one would having just lost her father.
Yeah, we're having my daughter and her boyfriend over.
What's more,
Have a great night.
neighbors tell police Nicole was expected for dinner 2 nights earlier.
Who are the first people that cops go to when they come to a murder scene? The neighbors. So was this well planned? Hell no, it wasn't well planned.
It's enough to ask Nicole to take a polygraph.
Do you know who killed your father?
No.
That was a biggie. I mean, that was one of the main things that helped get the ball rolling.
Knowing she's in trouble, over the coming days, Nicole decides to talk about her boyfriend, Jeremiah.
He's violent. He's got a killing nature.
She was not involved. Her violent, dope-smoking boyfriend had misconstrued some of her comments, and she never intended for this really to happen.
He made it happen.
When the police talk to Jeremiah, he confesses to the shootings.
When I asked him how'd it feel to shoot those people at point-blank range in their own dining room in their house, he kind of hunkered down just a little bit and got a grin on his face, and he said, "What a rush." But he was not obviously the mastermind.
All 3 are arrested. Michael Heath pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit capital murder. He receives 35 years in prison. Jeremiah Wetmore pleads guilty to capital murder and is sentenced to life.
So Jeremiah, you got to look at him as a sadist. He was excited about the violence, and he just wanted to kill somebody. The opportunity arose, and he took it.
In 1995, the mastermind, Nicole Yanos, is also convicted of capital murder. She receives life. No chance of parole for 40 years.
Nicole could have been anything she wanted to be, but instead, she's a murderer.
In Brooklyn, New York, Martha Place doesn't run away after murdering her stepdaughter because her rage hasn't been satisfied.
She waited all day long for William to come through the door.
Doesn't see Martha hiding in the shadows.
Martha comes at him and hits him right across the right temple.
Martha thinks she's struck a fatal blow. But she's miscalculated. Miraculously, William is alive.
William, bloodied from the axe wounds, manages to make it out his front door where his neighbor notices him and is able to call the police.
In 1898, Martha Place is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to death.
Martha was the first woman executed in the electric chair in the United States. A sad ending to a sad and desperate life.
God help me.
This is a story about a beautiful princess and an evil stepmother. Right out of Aesop's fables.
I got the job.
Children usually strive to gain their parents' approval. Most parents are a soft touch, only wanting their children to be healthy and happy. But a few moms and dads demand much more. In 1973, Boston, Massachusetts. 28-year-old Dr. Kathleen Hagen is making groundbreaking steps in her career.
Good morning, how are you?
Kathleen Hagen really was a success story. The kind of woman who strives to achieve. She graduated from Harvard. She went on to medical school.
She then became the first female resident in urology at Massachusetts General Hospital, very prestigious institution.
We'd like to offer you the position, Kathleen.
Thank you.
It's quite an achievement being the first woman.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Kathleen is happily shattering the glass ceiling.
You won't start until there's some preliminary paperwork.
I think she took great pride in her own success story.
And not everyone is so proud of Kathleen's achievements.
I have the most wonderful news.
I hope it's worth my supper getting cold.
She felt that she did not get the love that she needed from her parents.
An only child, she's desperate to impress mom and dad.
I got the job. I'm the first female doctor in the department.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But James and Adela Hagen are tough markers.
Now we'll have to see if you can actually do it.
She never felt that she never pleased them enough, that they were satisfied with her, even though she had achieved greatly.
Being belittled is hurtful. Being belittled by a parent can leave permanent scars. As happens in Nottingham, England, 1998. William and Patricia Wycherley are also unhappy with their daughter, Susan Edwards. They don't approve of her husband.
You got a promotion yet?
Afraid not. He's happy where he is.
Yeah, at the bottom.
William was very, very controlling and very domineering towards his daughter. He was resentful, I think, that he'd lost that control to another man.
Well, what do you expect from a bloody dating agency? William.
Her father didn't approve at all, but then again, I don't think her father would have approved of anyone.
Because of Patricia's subservience to William, it impacted on the relationship she had with her mother as well.
Finally here.
Susan lived at home with her parents until she met Christopher.
They were both kind of lonely hearts who found each other. They always appeared utterly inseparable.
The couple share a passion. From their modest home, they relive the golden age of Hollywood.
They both collected memorabilia.
Oh, it's better than I even hoped.
Should be for the money.
On their investments.
Their joint passion for collecting autographs of famous film stars like Gary Cooper.
There was a signed Gary Cooper photograph, which we think went for in the region of about £5,000, so $7,500 US for a single photograph. There are numerous examples of purchases such as this.
They are spending money they don't have. Susan is unemployed. Christopher has a low-paying job.
Susan and Christopher racked up enormous debt and got into financial trouble because of their obsession with acquiring memorabilia.
So obsessed, she creates her own fantasy world, where movie stars write her husband letters.
Oh, from France.
My favorite pen pal.
Christopher had genuinely believed that he was the pen friend of the French film actor Gérard Depardieu.
In truth, Susan pens the letters herself.
She'd gone as far as buying a special franking machine which made the letters look as though they'd been posted in France.
My dear friend Christopher, I hope this letter finds you in good health.
That tells me her self-esteem, the way she saw herself and her worth, was in the basement. But if a celebrity was writing to her, wow, that raised her stock.
Susan appears to have lived most of her life in a state of fantasy. She was clearly more happy living in than the real one.
While Susan retreats from the real world, in Boston, Massachusetts, Dr. Kathleen Hagen throws herself into her work to lift her self-esteem.
She then became chief of urology, so academically was flawless, extremely bright.
She needed to achieve, to feel good about herself. Maybe it's because that didn't come from her parents, and she needed that self-realization.
Kathleen, the meeting started.
There are not enough hours.
As well as a hectic career, in 1983, Kathleen marries handsome engineer William Tyrrell.
What are you doing here?
We thought we could get some lunch.
I wish. You can walk me to my meeting.
Pleasure.
She is certainly trying to juggle a lot of balls, so to speak, in her personal life.
But Kathleen is keeping a secret. Since her teen years, she's suffered from bouts of severe depression.
Why are you so late?
There's just so much to do.
There were episodes in her life where there was some signs of psychiatric difficulties.
You can't keep going on like this. You're gonna end up a patient.
Why would you say that?
Take it easy. Well, sit down.
But Kathleen hates to fail.
You know, it's easy to go get help if you have a broken leg, but not if your mind is mentally, escaping you.
As the stress builds up, Kathleen comes crashing down.
I think she tried to keep it very secretive, that she had difficulty dealing in certain situations.
The doctor is hospitalized and diagnosed with a severe mental illness, bipolar disorder. After 2 months of treatment, Kathleen is well enough to return to work.
It's lovely, but I haven't got time to stop.
5 minutes.
1.
But William thinks his wife needs a sea change.
Could we?
Why not?
They embark on a new life, running a hotel in the Virgin Islands. For 2 years, Kathleen and William are happy. But what begins as paradise turns into hell.
Hurricane Hugo hits the Virgin Islands, wipes out the hotel and her investment. She had put a lot of money into it.
Financially crippled, the couple flee back to New Jersey. But if she's hoping for sympathy from her parents, she's sadly disappointed.
It was a wild idea.
It was the storms.
You should have stuck to what you know.
It wasn't the perfect nuclear family to begin with.
Her parents were not expressive of their love. They were very hard on her. She becomes unstable.
Can't do anything right.
As a result of stress.
Oh, don't be so dramatic.
Her stress intensifies when her husband leaves her. Kathleen isn't dealing with reality.
I'm here for my husband's birthday. You know William?
She comes to a place where she knows he frequents bars, dressed oddly.
Kathleen's mental illness is taking over.
You know William, hey, we're gonna celebrate.
It's a bizarre episode, enough that the police are called.
Hey, no, we're just gonna celebrate.
She is plummeting to an all-time low.
Come on.
When you have someone who's in a psychotic episode, they are in an altered state of reality. They do not know what they're doing or the effect of what they're doing.
By 1999, Kathleen is unstable, divorced, and unemployed. The 53-year-old moves back in with her aging parents. James and Adela give their daughter an icy reception.
It was Mrs. Hagen's birthday, and the doctor said, "Mom, I'd like to make you a cake."
I'll throw it on the floor if you do.
That was very upsetting to her that her mother would say something like that to her.
She was really hoping that they would accept her and show, I think, some more loving toward her, but it didn't happen.
In England, Susan and Christopher Edwards' lives are also spiraling down. They are broke because of their compulsive spending. Susan turns to her parents, not for a loan, but a promised inheritance.
When Susan was about 21, she inherited some money from her grandmother.
All I'm asking for is the money Grandma left to me.
But her parents spent it on a house and didn't give her the money later when they sold that house.
That was years ago.
I know it was, but it's my money and I want it back.
Well, it's too late. It's all gone.
Susan had a simmering resentment.
On the night of May 3rd, 1998, Susan and Christopher are going to stand up for themselves.
She, of the two, was actually the stronger character. Christopher would do almost anything for her.
The last thing they ever saw on this earth was Christopher holding a gun on them.
Christopher shot Susan's parents twice in the chest at quite close range. They died immediately or very, very soon after the shots were fired.
Susan hated her parents. They took advantage of her, and now they were gone.
Christopher dug the grave just outside the rear door of the property.
They weren't buried with any great dignity. Pop one in, pop the other in, fill it in. Go to the garden centre, buy some shrubs, plant it on top of this grave.
Susan and Christopher were not natural-born killers. They were a couple of people that committed a murder for a very specific reason and kept the money.
Mrs. Edwards, please have a seat.
Susan's waited almost 20 years for her inheritance.
So, what can I do for you? I'd just like to transfer this.
Now she has it.
She cleared out her mother's account, which had £40,000 in it.
It wasn't because of greed or revenge. She was taking what she thought rightfully was hers.
But Susan wants more. Her parents are receiving a pension and will continue to if no one knows they're dead.
It was very, very clever.
Thank you.
Streams of revenue, which they'd identified as being able to divert into their own back pockets, as long as they could maintain the premise that the Wycherleys were still alive and well.
It's yet another Susan fantasy. But this time, it's not costing them money. It's making it.
Christmas cards had to be sent, either forged from William or Patricia describing their recent adventures.
She sent letters saying father's got a new lease of life, he's really enjoying himself, he's gone off traveling to Ireland, they've moved to Blackpool.
It was almost a full-time job for them to maintain the lie.
Hello? Yes, I'm ringing about my father, William Wycherley.
I think Susan and Christopher probably gave each other a high five every day when they passed in the kitchen.
I'm afraid he's had a fall. He won't be able to make it.
They were proud of it.
Okay, I'll let him know.
The couple's debts evaporate, and no one suspects a thing.
Now, for the first time in her life, Susan had a lot of money, but she didn't spend it on cars, vacations, or a nice home. She spent it on more memorabilia.
It was really, really erratic, crazy spending.
The Edwards are finally living their dream. But the once high-flying doctor, Kathleen Hagen, is living in her parents' basement. She's becoming more reclusive and irrational.
She's not sleeping, she's not eating.
Kathleen needs intervention, but there is none. In August 2000, Kathleen plans to put an end to her troubles.
Her parents were asleep. They each had twin beds in the same room. And she did her father first because she felt he would be stronger and more likely to fight. She put the pillow over his face and she suffocates him.
Her 92-year-old mother is next.
When she was smothering the mother, she stated that the mother's hand was moving while she was doing that. Her mother was trying to fight from it.
As they decompose in their beds, Kathleen's parents can no longer judge her. She finally spends time with them on her terms.
She goes about rituals, as she calls them, either to gain into this other sphere or to undo what she's done. Hard to say. She's walking backwards. She's doing things backwards. She's living without sleep, without eating much, if anything, really.
Six days later, Kathleen finally snaps out of her trance and calmly makes a call.
I've done something very bad. My parents are dead.
She called the police directly.
It's my fault.
And she stated something to the effect of, "It's all my fault."
In 2002, Dr. Kathleen Hagen is found not guilty of murdering her parents by reason of insanity. She's committed to a psychiatric institution. After 6 years, she is ruled to be free of psychosis and released.
Professionals rule that she doesn't have any more suicidal or homicidal ideations, and she can live back in the community, and I support that.
In 2015, Kathleen Hagen dies at home, age 69. Across the Atlantic, Susan and Christopher Edwards think they have gotten away with a double murder.
After a number of years of not getting caught, they had no reason to believe they ever would be caught.
For the next 15 years, the couple go through $250,000 of Susan's parents' pension funds and might have had a Hollywood ending, if not for a quirky British tradition.
What have you got?
Bad news. William Wycherley would have been coming up to be 100. And the practice is for someone coming up to be 100, they are interviewed by the authorities. Well, William had been dead for 15 years, and this caused great alarm.
Call them. Say that he's away.
I've already tried that.
Their fantasy is crashing down.
They then fled to France, pretty much with the clothes that they stood up in and the memorabilia, which was obviously so important to them that they couldn't leave it behind them.
For a year, they hide out abroad. But without an income, they're broke and scavenging.
Look, I'm really sorry to ask, but
It's all too much for Christopher. While begging a relative for help, he loses it and finally confesses.
because we buried Susan's parents in the garden.
Christopher confessed that the bodies of William and Patricia Wycherley were both buried in the back garden of the house.
It's now a matter of time before the law catches up to them. And the lure of a good meal makes prison a better prospect.
Susan and Christopher were unusual criminals all the way around. They emailed the police and set up a meeting to turn themselves in, not at the police station, but at the train station.
Are you Susan and Christopher Edmonds?
Yes.
What's in the cases?
At the time of their arrest, they had literally a few euros in their pockets, the clothes they stood up in, and suitcases full of the most bizarre film memorabilia from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
In 2014, 16 years after murdering William and Patricia Wycherley, Susan and Christopher Edwards are found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder.
They were both sentenced to life imprisonment and told that they would serve a minimum of 25 years.
They are, in fact, probably never likely to see each other again because of their age. So their only friend has been completely removed.
They lose everything. Her parents, each other, and their treasured memorabilia. All Susan has now are her fantasies.
What she's done from her own fantastical sense of reality, that it's not real, it didn't happen. I think she just lives in a completely different world.